Dan, was there anything you wanted to start out with, or did you just want me to get going?
I think you just jump right in and show them what we've done.
All right. So today we're going to demo the Continuum integration with Tigerpaw. We did do a demo for a smaller group back in July, but we've done a little bit of work since. So for those of you who saw this back in July, you won't see a whole lot visible. I will point some things out in the actual configurator. A lot of the work we did was under the hood and just getting things to be syncing properly and handle all the different scenarios that happen between when Continuum talks to Tigerpaw and vice versa. So one thing you're going to want to keep in mind, there is a whole lot of things you can customize for how you want this integration to work as you set this up. So this is definitely something you're going to want to consider pretty seriously and take a look at, read the documentation, think about the things you want to communicate back from Continuum to Tigerpaw, and when you want it to update Continuum from Tigerpaw back into Continuum, when you want that to happen. And we'll kind of hit those as we go through the different parts of the configurator here. Rick is going to jump in whenever there's value in something. He knows Continuum by far better than I. So he has agreed to come on and help me out with this, especially when it comes to the Continuum side. So I'm just going to start going through our configurator here, and we'll talk about the different areas and get through the setup. Once we're done getting it set up, I'll go ahead and start the service. We'll go ahead and create a few tickets in Continuum, do some updates back and forth with Tigerpaw, and then we can open it up for questions, answers, and all that good stuff. So our first, once you come into the Tigerpaw configurator, I've got it all set up here. As you'll see, there's quite a bit to set up, and I'm going to bring out, like, if there's something that we've changed since that July, I'll bring it out here just so I can draw your attention to it. But the first thing you'll do is connect it to your Tigerpaw database. And then down here is where you have your Tigerpaw API settings. Now it's worth noting that this is the Tigerpaw RMM and mobile API. So if you have mobile set up, you likely already have this API set up. Or if you've used the past integrations that utilize this RMM API, you will probably already have it set up, but it will need to have an SSL cert with it in order to get this part work, which is already required for the mobile API. You'll go ahead and set that up, generate your users through the user utility. And once you've got that done, you can test your connection and make sure that it's okay to continue on to the next tab. In the next tab, you've got where you set up your Tigerpaw Continuum information. And that's actually, you set this up, and I'll just go over it briefly if I can, I believe it's under admin. And then we've got integration. So this is where you get that information that you'll need for the Tigerpaw, the configurator. You're gonna want to follow their step-by-step instructions in our setup guide. But you come in here and you set up your user, you get an integrator password set up. You've got your callback API or URL and your callback method. You'll get a token, and then that's where you come back in and you've got your user ID password that you set up in the token that was generated. Test your connection, and then you know that you can move on. The reporting,
hey, Marsha?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you pop back in on the PSA integration? This is something that trips a couple of people up. They get a little confused. Everybody, can you see at the very top where it says other authorized vendors? Marsha, can you click on that drop down right up there?
Sure.
So everybody's going to see that there's one that says Tigerpaw in here. And that's not the one that you want to use, even though it says Tigerpaw. Nothing to see here, move along. That's the way that the old integration used to work. So it's really important. I've had a lot of people that have called us with this problem saying, I've done it, but it doesn't work. And it's really been that simple setting that we've had to change. And then everything works perfectly at that point. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, good point. And then you'll go ahead and set up your reporting API, which you get. You get the information in here and you generate your key there. And you can also test that and make sure that you're okay to move on. One thing this configurator will prevent you from moving from tab to tab on these, especially first few tabs that have required information. Those are notated with the asterisks. If those are not filled out, it will not let you continue. So it's a good idea to kind of get familiar before you start to make sure you have all the needed information. So the next tab we move on to is our service tab. This is the top areas where you're going to set up the default values that you want in case, for instance, there's not a taken by rep that exists in Tigerpaw coming over from Continuum. Well, not the taken by, the tech assigned, I guess, would be the one that would, if that doesn't exist in Tigerpaw, or there isn't one for whatever reason, what tech you would want. The service order type you want to utilize for these tickets coming over from Continuum. And then you've got information here where you can say where you want your inbound comments to come from Continuum when creating the service order. If it's coming from the NOC, you have your choice of the SO notes, work performed, work requested, or internal comments. And it's the same on down the line. If you utilize the help desk services, you'll want to set that up. You've got the same options. The inbound comments for the MSP work tickets, same options. And then you have the option if you utilize ad hoc tickets from Continuum, where you would want those to go to what account inside Tigerpaw. You can turn that on or you can choose to ignore them by leaving it off. If you leave it off, any ad hoc ticket in Continuum will not come over to Tigerpaw. It just won't create a service order. So if you are using the Continuum NOC and or the Continuum help desk, here's where you would want to set the tech assigned for the Tigerpaw rep. If you don't use them, you can just go ahead and leave them blank. Okay, here's where we get to our mappings. And this is how you want to map this first tab, how you want to map the assets coming from Tigerpaw or from Continuum into Tigerpaw. This is used for the pulling of the work state or pulling of the assets from Continuum. So you can choose with this integration whether or not you want these assets to come into Tigerpaw. So as you can see here, I've got a few set up to do not sync, meaning if there is an asset with this Continuum asset type in Continuum, and I've got it set to not sync, when I pull my devices in Tigerpaw, I won't get any entries for those items. And you match these up to your Tigerpaw asset types as they are in your master tables. One of the things we did under the hood since July is when this was first done, these values all pulled when you loaded the configurator. For all the drop downs, they pulled in. And we've made it now so I can go in to Tigerpaw and go into my master tables and add a new one while it's open. And then it'll be available in the drop down right away without closing and reloading. It was a real problem for people setting this up. If they all of a sudden found, hey, I want to sync that, but I don't have anything to sync it to. It just threw people for a loop rather than setting it to do not sync and then having to remember to come back and set it after the fact, or losing everything because everything wasn't set up yet and having to start over. So that is one of the things that we did under the hood. And then lastly, if there is not an asset type, and this would come when a ticket was generated for something, because these aren't just used when pulling assets, these are used when creating the ticket as well. You can set an asset type in here and it pulls from the same area, just to use as a default.
Marcia, a common question that a lot of people ask is they set this up, but they don't really know where in Tigerpaw these assets land. And they also don't know how you can tell Tigerpaw on an individual account basis to go out there and manually poll once the linkage is in. Do you have any assets that have landed inside of Tigerpaw, or can you show everybody the area where these land?
Yeah, and actually, once we get the service started, I was going to go in. My test account already has assets on it, but we can certainly delete them and then do a manual pull.
Awesome.
All right. So once you have your assets all set, and it's worth noting that you may have, as you can see, multiple Continuum asset types go to the same asset type inside Tigerpaw. So if you've got multiple different kinds of workstations, for example, that's what I have here. I have them all set to the same asset type in Tigerpaw. Inbound statuses. So one of the other big changes we made from July till now is the ability to have multiple Continuum statuses go to the same Tigerpaw status. Continuum has quite a few statuses, and not everybody wants that many SO statuses inside their Tigerpaw database. So we made the change, so you can now have a mapping that says, like I've got a few on hold, pending, waiting for customer, all going to waiting on the client. So this is where you sync the inbound Continuum status, how it comes into Tigerpaw. So when Continuum sends a ticket information over to you or to Tigerpaw, how it comes into Tigerpaw and what that service order status will be. As you can see, these all pull from the master tables. This, like the other one, if you you need to go in and add one, you can just go ahead and go into your Tigerpaw master tables and add an SO status and just regenerate your drop down and it should pop right back in there. And I think this one was closed. And then our next tab is our outbound status. Here's where you can control when a ticket is updated from Tigerpaw to Continuum. There was a lot of people that were asking, hey, I don't want a ticket to update every single time I change the status in Tigerpaw. I just want to know, I just want Continuum to get updated once I close it out. If you want to do that, you can do that here. Closed statuses in Tigerpaw are the only ones where you have to map it. All the rest of them could be set not to sync if you wanted. And that way, only when the ticket was closed out would be the time that the service would go and update Continuum. If there are other important statuses in your Tigerpaw that you want to have updated in Continuum, you just simply map them here. Again, you can map many Tigerpaw statuses, many Continuum statuses to the same Tigerpaw status. So you've got the ability to set them not to sync, and you got the ability to set them all. So if you don't have multiple closed statuses, but you've got multiple things that close tickets out in Continuum or would equal the same, then you could have it go ahead and update however you wanted in Continuum. And then lastly, we've got our priority mapping. Continuum has 3 priorities, as I'm sure most of you know: emergency, medium, and low. Continuum can also be quite chatty, meaning before with our past integration in Tigerpaw, all these low priority items were creating tickets in Tigerpaw. And it created a lot of busy work and frankly, just bloating the service orders in Tigerpaw because it wasn't necessarily things that needed action. So here you have the ability, like our outbound statuses, to set items not to sync. So you would map your emergency to whatever priority in Tigerpaw you would want, your medium continuum to whatever priority in Tigerpaw you want. And if you didn't want all the chatty noise coming over into your Tigerpaw database, you could say, I don't want to see my low, so don't sync those. And then down below, you would want your default service order priority for your inbound tickets if you don't have it mapped above. If you don't map it, it would use this. I would recommend that you would map them all or set them not to sync. But that in a nutshell is a lot of information, I know. And like I said before, these are all things, as you can see, with as granular as you can get with these settings. It's going to be something you want to consider pretty heavily before you go ahead and configure this and then turn the service on. Because once it turns on, you're going to start seeing tickets come over and things like that. So you want to make sure you have it working how it's going to be most effective for you. I think probably now might be a good place to stop. And if you have any questions on the overall configurator, you can ask those, or Rick, if you have anything to add that I missed. And then we can continue on. I'll start the service and we'll go look at and see how things work together.
I want to just make sure to remind everybody that you know exactly what Marcia said. Two things that I've learned after rolling this out, not only internally, but to other customer sites. One, super, super important to read through the documentation. There are a lot of things that are here. Tigerpaw has made this connector very, very sophisticated and given us a lot of granular control. So you owe it to yourselves to read through the documentation first and understand that this is not something that's going to take a few minutes to do. It's going to take a few hours to do because you're going to want to walk through all the different things of how information is going to move back and forth between the two platforms. Please do yourself a favor and give yourself the time that you need in order to understand all that. And second, make sure that you are mindful about the process that you want to use when these tickets land from Continuum. Be sure that you're looking at them, even though the NOC is taking care of a lot of things. It's really, really good. Our practice has been that whenever these tickets fly through from Continuum, while they're working them, when they close the tickets at the Continuum end, we have them automatically set to ready to QC on our end, just so our team can just put another set of eyes and just walk through and make sure that when they close them out, that everything looks good. I think it's good to do that in the beginning so that you can all get accustomed to the type of things that are coming through Continuum. And then you can gather statistics on that. If you're like us and you're using BrightGauge and sending reports out to your customers every month to show ticket traffic, number of tickets, this is going to make it look even better. But heed Marcia's advice, please. Go through and understand, take advantage of the sophistication here, and then you'll be super, super pleased with what you see.
Marcia, did you see that there are a few questions in the chat?
I don't. This is difficult.
So I'll read them to you.
Okay.
First question is there any option other than status to determine what gets sent to Continuum?
The outbound statuses are what controls what gets sent to Continuum.
Okay. The second question is, how does it match the Continuum site to the Tigerpaw account?
I will show you that. It is by the site ID, and I'll show you that once we get into Tigerpaw.
Okay. And then the final question from the chat is there a way to just pull assets and not do tickets?
There is. Joel, I can actually answer that question. If you go in and just set the priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you set priorities to not sync, then it'll just bring in the assets. And actually, Joel, I'm glad you raised that question, because if there's another thing, and you were just reminding me about something that I can share with the group, when you do get the integration in place, it's actually a really, really good idea to turn all of the priorities to do not sync first. Check the integration, make sure that it's working. Marcia's about to show you how these link together at the Tigerpaw level. It's really good to first test the integration with the assets pouring in versus the tickets pouring in. And then you can make sure that all the stuff that you need to do is set correctly. And it's just a matter of setting these all to do not sync. And then the only thing that's going to come inbound at that point is going to be the assets.
Awesome. All right, Marcia, that's all the questions in the chat for now. I'll keep monitoring it.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm remote and I only have one screen that I can see this on right now. So I appreciate it. All right, once you're set up here, you can click OK and it's going to come through and let you know it saved your settings. And you can go ahead and start your service. And I forgot if I logged in as an admin. I did, so good. All right, so inside Tigerpaw, on the service defaults tab of my account, I have my Continuum external product set up. And here's where I tell it how to identify the account in Continuum, this external account ID. And that is the site ID in Continuum. Let me bumble through here a little bit. Where am I going to find that, Rick? Devices.
If I could only figure out how to unmute quicker. Tell me what you're looking for.
I'm looking to find the actual sites listing in Continuum.
Oh, if you go to devices, and then you would have a plus, and then in normal setups, what you'll see is a list of all the sites right there.
Right here. Yep.
Yep.
This is our test. So there's not many, but you can see that Tigerpaw HQ, and that is how it's set here.
It's worth mentioning, we ran into this with one customer. They had multiple Continuum accounts set up. They had some of their assets for their data center in one Continuum account and then their LAN in another account, right? Same company, just two different groupings inside of Continuum and two different sites. And what they tried to do is they tried to add multiple Continuum external products inside the account in Tigerpaw. And it doesn't support that. So I just want to let everybody know that if you can add as many in there as you want, but what's going to happen is it's going to go to the first one. It's going to say, wait, that account doesn't match. It's not going to look at the second and the third. If you find yourself in that situation, we find ourselves in that situation at Decision Digital. We have our data center, our Azure servers in one site, and then we have our LAN stuff in another site. We just created a second account inside of Tigerpaw called Decision Digital Azure and have the external product pointed to that so that we can keep asset lists of both of them inside Tigerpaw so we can look at them at any time.
And then if you come into the sites area, I believe this is in the admin area and the sites, you see it's the site name. It's not the site code that you want. It is the site name. And that's really important. If you set it up, because Continuum will let you have these be different. But this is the one the integration is looking at. And that is in doc, but it's really critical to know the difference between the two and which one you need to set up. So I wanted to just bring that to your attention. All right, so there's a few different places where you can set up, where you can pull for devices, right? Let me get rid of these items here. These are my managed assets. So I can go ahead and I can, is my service not running?
There you go. That button will pull. It's important to mention that if you have old polling assets in here, like if you're attached to SolarWinds or Enable or some other platform at some point, when you go and create those external products, it's a good idea to actually take those out of Tigerpaw, because what it'll do, unless you choose the provider specifically here, it's going to try to pull against those other connections and eventually time out and then roll to the next one, the next one, and the next one. So it may just cause a delay if you've got some older pieces in there, just for everybody to know.
And here I've got my polling of assets being as complete. And I brought my 3 items that I've got at this test account back in. There's other places inside Tigerpaw that you can pull for assets. You should be able to pull for assets if you're billing for this through an agreement. So we've got this item here, and if we go into customer assets, you've got your polling button here as well, and that actually adds them to the agreement and the account. The system, if you set this agreement up for automated billing through the timer service, it will automatically pull for the device before it does your billing. And then if you do the manual billing, you will get the option to pull for devices before the billing comes through. And this is where having multiple screens open is difficult because I can't see quite where to, there we go. Close that out. All right, so let's take a look. Let me close this one out from testing earlier. And we'll go back to our main account.
Hey, Marcia, before you move on, a
Yeah.
couple of new questions have come in.
Sure.
One is, what is the character limit on the site name?
Inside Tigerpaw, I'm going to have to look at that.
Okay. And the other one looks like somebody else already answered, Rick already answered the other one about the default priority, and then it's mapped in the priority tab. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, I'll look at that.
Okay.
Because I'm not quite sure right off. I'm going to have to look in the table. So let me look and.
We can get back to the group afterwards.
Sure. All right. So we've got our service running. I think at this point we see how the polling works to bring the assets actually in. So let's go back out to our Continuum and create a ticket and have that come into Tigerpaw. So I'll create 2. I have my low priority set that I don't want that to create a ticket. And then my mediums and my emergencies will create tickets. So let's create a couple new tickets. We'll create one at medium or emergency, and we will create another low priority ticket. So I'm going to just come in here for my test account. We'll set it for that machine, service requests, Active Directory. My priority, I'll set it to medium. I'm going to set this at, so just interestingly, I believe NOC team is the only thing that exists in this test system. I meant to get myself added before this, but I had something come up and I wasn't able to. But just so I can easily see which one is which, I'm going to set this at medium in the subject so I can easily tell on the service orders in Tigerpaw which one is, that we're getting the right one. So submit it. I've got my ticket generated. Let's go ahead and do a second one. And we'll say this machine, service request, backup. Say this one is slow.
No, espérate, no lo hagas todavía.
¿Todavía no? Bueno, ya están listos.
Sí, déjalo ahí.
And also
No,
save
porque
enough,
es como por unas máquinas.
and we'll
Aparentemente no
submit
está el
it as
dinero.
low.
Entonces,
And we've got 2 tickets that we generated. And the polling takes a few minutes. It cycles through every few minutes. I believe it's 5 minutes when I asked. So this, we might have to wait just depending on where it was in the cycle. Oh, actually, we were pretty good. So I've got my ticket created. My notes came over from Continuum here. I can update it in Tigerpaw, and I should have probably taken a look, but I don't remember now which outbound statuses sync and which ones don't. We won't stop, we'll just take a look. So that message was just basically saying, hey, you can't make changes to this while the service is running. Do you want to stop it? I said no. So the only thing, let's see, assigned will talk to it, but all these will say inner time and assigned. All right. So back in here, I can say work performed, we'll say ticket assigned to, and we'll assign it to whomever. It won't be able to do this because I don't have those in Continuum, but we'll pick somebody, pick Sean. And assigned and save it. And we'll probably have to wait a minute or two for these to sync back over. But let's take a look and see if our low ever came over. It shouldn't have. I don't see it, which is good. So I'm going to come out here and just take a look real quick. This is the table inside the database. So I can see I've got things out here that are pending that did not. And I'll be able to see once it syncs here. This is our low one, so it won't sync. All right. Go back out to Continuum and ticket list. And this is our one we just created. We bring it up. And we can see it went back as it was mapped to scheduled. And it says, has the notes where the ticket was assigned to Sean and it updated appropriately.
Another question from the group, Marcia.
Yeah.
And when a tech updates the notes, will it update the continuing ticket, or is it the status that actually determines whether it's updated in Continuum?
It's the status, whether it's updating Continuum. So it'll bring all the notes that were in Tigerpaw once back over that are in like the work performed, but it's only going to do it based off of how you have the status mapping.
Thank you.
All right, so then we can show one that won't sync, which was the inner time one. So I can go ahead and update my ticket in Tigerpaw, and I can put in Sean, please enter time. And I can save that off. Our spell checker doesn't like that spelling of Sean, apparently. All right. So while I'm doing that, I can show you another thing. I don't know real world, and Rick, maybe you'll have to tell me. I should have asked you about this morning. But this low ticket I have out here that didn't sync, and we can still see it's still hasn't come over. We just have that one medium, one open. If there's ever a scenario where you need it to come over, that something may become more serious, or if Continuum, and I'm not sure, Rick, maybe you can answer this, maybe Continuum, if something was considered low, it might become a higher priority. I can update it here and set it to a priority that does. Let's say this all of a sudden becomes an emergency. I need this backed up for whatever reason right now. I can submit this. And what will happen is an update will get sent over to Tigerpaw. And because it never came over from the first time, the update will actually create a ticket inside Tigerpaw, where that low actually becomes an emergency or a higher level that does sync. So I don't know if that is a real world scenario that ever happens, but the ability is there. If you do find you need to have something come over, you don't have to create a new ticket. You could just change a priority if need be, and it would come over.
A lot of that, Marcia, Continuum is pretty good about understanding low, medium, and high. And then the partners have got the ability, if there are certain circumstances where something may be considered low normally, where they want Continuum to treat that as a medium or emergency, they can specify that pretty easily. The process you just went through is also something that that's probably, if something gets moved around, that's probably the best way to do it. It's important to remind everyone, I find this to be true with a lot of the Continuum integrations that we've done for people. A lot of partners don't put enough time on the front end to go into Continuum and actually program it with the rules and the response levels that they want the NOC to practice. In other words, they get everything in place and they turn it on and they just think that the NOC is just going to start magically grabbing tickets and starting to work things. Until they start to look in there and see a backlog of tickets in Continuum, you'll now see those flooding into Tigerpaw, and they're thinking that the NOC is working on these, and then the reality is the NOC, in some cases, hasn't been told the steps to take. That's not a Tigerpaw thing. That's purely when you're setting up Continuum, there's a process that's there that you're supposed to educate the NOC, if you will. When you see these certain things happening, I'd like you to take these mitigation steps before reaching out to us. So in your example, a lot of times I think I would see this happen if the partner hasn't put the right time on the front end to get all the pieces in place on the Continuum side to tell the NOC what they're supposed to do in order to take care of stuff, and then it can flow through the way that it's supposed to. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. All right, so we've got that ticket that previously wasn't coming over because it was low priority. We can see it now in Tigerpaw as an emergency, and including the notes that we've added along with the original information. We'll go back to our ticket that we set to enter time. We'll just come in here and check that guy out. Make sure that it's not supposed to sync. Let's make sure it didn't. We can see it's still at scheduled, and we don't have any new updates. So we'll come out here. We'll go ahead and close it out. say the work was completed. So this should go ahead and update us back to Continuum with our notes. And that'll just take a minute here.
While we're waiting for that, Marcia, another question came in.
Certainly.
And apologies were given if this was already covered, but if they need to assign a ticket to help desk that came direct to one of the members in this group, can they open a Tigerpaw ticket to push it to Continuum, or would they need to open the ticket in Continuum and have it pushed to Tigerpaw?
So Tigerpaw will update existing tickets in Continuum, but it will not create new tickets. So you would want to start the ticket in Continuum.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. We're not updated yet. Nope, it just hadn't. I guess I should have refreshed. So we've got our medium ticket that we did as our example, and it's all closed out. I didn't add any new notes, so we're not going to see any of the information that already exists here. And that is pretty much it. You know, the most important part I think to remember about this is thinking about how you want the information to flow back and forth and what you can do within, especially the outbound and the priorities for the information coming in and going back out to Continuum, and what you want to come into Tigerpaw and how you want it to go back to Continuum is, again, I know we're kind of hammering that home, but it really is really critical in how you want this integration to work for you. So I know we had some questions along the way, but if there's anything anyone wants to ask now, or Rick, if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I think you covered it really, really well. If anybody needs any help with getting it configured, or if they want to understand a little bit more best practices, how they apply to MSP and TSP, please feel free to reach out. We've had this running in place for a little while. We've rolled it out now to about a half dozen sites. We've developed a really good document that talks about best practices and how to roll this. So don't be bashful, reach out to us and we'll be glad to share what we've learned with you and get you where you need to be.
And I think I will at least reply all to this meeting invite with our release notes for Continuum and that answer to the link on the external ID field.
Marcia, thanks for running through this, and Rick, thank you very much for your added commentary and offers of assistance.
Most
All right.
definitely. Thank you, Rick.
My pleasure.
Marcia, why don't you send that list to Janet? I know she coordinated the webinar with you, and I'll get her the recording. And once the recording's done, we'll get an email out to everybody with both of those.
Okay, I can do that.
Oh, you know, there's something that I just thought about, Marcia, that maybe is worth mentioning to everybody as we close. Can you take a moment and explain to people if you're in the Continuum tab there in the integrator, if you don't mind clicking back there again, go to the services. Can you take a moment and explain that the taken by rep and the tech assign, that when you set those up in Tigerpaw, that you don't necessarily have to assign a license to them?
Oh, certainly. So this is going to be the default values that pull in from when the ticket is generated. This does not have to have, these techs do not, kind of like the timer service tech, does not have to have a Tigerpaw license assigned. It's just, you know, if they're not going to log into Tigerpaw, they don't need a license, basically. This would be for reporting purposes. So let's say, like in my example where I have the tech assigned as Tigerpaw tech, that I choose that I want to go ahead and assign these out as they come in. I can then generate a matrix or even my dispatch board to filter for a listing for this Tigerpaw tech and assign them out that way. This is purely, it can be an existing tech with a license, but it is not a requirement.
I think it's important to point out to everybody that, in sticking with the way that we all like to run our practices, making that taken by tech an exclusive rep, in this case, the documentation recommends using Continuum knock. It's important for me to remind everybody that this becomes super important as time goes by if you want to be able to measure how many tickets are coming into Tigerpaw from Continuum. It's a valuable metric to measure, and it gives you a clearer understanding of exactly what's going on. So follow the guidelines. We can help you with this part as well, but I oftentimes find that people think, oh goodness, that means I'm going to have to buy another license from Tigerpaw to do this. You don't. It's totally worth segregating this traffic so that you can measure it and then know what's going on the knock end.
For sure. You can use that SO type field as well for segregating things. And it's not just with this integration, but yeah, utilize those fields as much as possible. Well, if no one has anything else, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all for attending today.
Thank you, Marcia.
Hey, Marcia, this is Brian Seworth. I'd like to thank Joel, Marcia, and your team there for all your hard work and effort in putting into this over this period of time. And Rick, thank you for all your comments and insight as well.
Our pleasure.
Certainly.
It's Steve with Decision Digital. Marcia, I want to thank you for all the, oh gosh, sorry.
They always have perfect
You just
timing.
got a new puppy, which I don't recommend as you're recovering from COVID. But anyway, thank you so much. The work you've done on this is incredible. And I think it's going to be, okay, I'll go on mute. Sorry.
Thank you, Steve.
I think I can finish what he was saying. The work that Tigerpaw has done on here has really been, everybody's really extraordinary. The granular control that we have is really amazing. It's a sophisticated tool. Take the time you need to learn it and use it. But kudos to the Tigerpaw development team for putting something out here that is really, really great. And it's a welcome change.
Thanks for the great feedback.
Yes, thank you. Well,
It looks like David White has a quick question.
sure.
David, go ahead. Speak.
If we already had it set up with the integrator, should we disable everything before making all the changes and then turning it back on?
The older, the new.
To upgrade to the new integrator.
I would, yeah, you would want to stop the service from running. And you're gonna switch things over. So you'll go through the whole setup again. Things aren't saved in the same way. And so once you get upgraded, it'll force you to reconfigure it. But yeah, stop the service before you proceed. All right. Well, I probably won't talk to any of you before the holidays. So happy holidays and happy new year.
To you as well. Thank you again, Marcia.
You bet.
Same to you, Marcia, and to you, Joel. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, Rick.
Everyone, happy holidays.